Well, today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Kathy Goggin. Kathy was the founder of New Beginnings Family Services here in Red Wing in 2006. Hello and welcome, Kathy.
Hi.
So 15 years ago, how did all this work start?
Well, Rose, it actually started with a phone call. Back in the spring of 2005, Sandy Hasselblad gave me a call, and she said, I heard there was a pregnancy center that was opening in Cannon Falls. And she said, I'm praying about it, and I'd like you to pray about it. And I said, sure, I'll pray about it. And I hung up the phone, and I thought, how in the world? I'll pray about it, yes, but how in the world could I ever be a part of that? Because it was in the midst, my son had cancer, and we were in the middle of treatment. And I didn't have time for anything else. So I prayed about it. And about a month later, Mark Face, I had a conversation with him. And he said, Say, I just talked to somebody from Cannon Falls about you today. And I said, you did? And he said, yeah. The pregnancy center over there is looking for an executive director. He said, can I give your number to the man I talked to Dave Vandergon? And I said, sure. So he did, and Dave called me. And in the course of the conversation, it wasn't an executive director they were looking for at the time. It was a board member. So I got on the board in July of 2005. And shortly after getting on the board, I was in my car and just driving along on the highway out here, and the presence of God so overtook me in the car, and I was just crying and asking the Lord to bring a pregnancy resource center to Red Wing. And June of 2006, we opened. So it wasn't easy. It's never easy, as you know.
Yeah.
But the Lord, He just uses weak and broken people that love Him. And He brought us together. My team consisted of, in the early days, myself and 3 Rhondas. So we had Rhonda Johnson and Rhonda Luna and Rhonda Pelzer. And we were a small team. We weren't open every day. Our original location was over at 305 Plum on the corner there, as you would go over to Wisconsin. And we were there for about a year and a half. We went through a lot of changes. We didn't have many clients that first year, I think 6 maybe. But over the years, God is so faithful just to bring the clients in and to bring the donors in and to bring the volunteers in and to give us the money to add staffing. And we did that until 2009, when we decided that we were still with Cannon Falls up until 2009. Then we decided to split as we had different visions. I believe at that time, 2009, was I executive director? I think I was at that time. And I wanted to take Red Wing into the medical clinic pathway, and Cannon Falls wasn't ready to go that way. So we split and began that process of taking New Beginnings Family Services Pregnancy Resource Center to a medical clinic, pregnancy medical clinic.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So you found a medical director and had to get CLIA waivers and learn all about that.
God brought Dr. Spano in. We had a donor who called us and came up and said, you need to get Dr. Spano, he's great. And we did, and the Lord opened the door on that. And so yeah, it was a long process. It was a painful process. But God is faithful in all of it, and was faithful.
Stopped at the Minnesota Citizens Concern for Life booth and got chatting there, and they said, wow, you two have such an amazing story. You should really share that. So I asked Mom if she'd be okay talking about this story, and she said, yeah, because it might help other people think longer term than when they're in the crisis of an unwanted pregnancy. So, I know a little bit about my history. You weren't married at the time, and I have an older brother who was probably 9 months old.
Year and a half. Well,
when you got pregnant with me. We're 14 months apart.
Yeah.
So he was 5 months old. and you were not married, and you found out you're pregnant with me. And so your parents, my grandparents, who I love dearly, just felt like it's too much to have another mouth to feed. You weren't married. There was a lot of shame back in that era. It wasn't like today where they really come around these unwed moms and help them. So, you were talking to those ladies, and they said, well, I shared that it came to a point that they actually had you try to get an abortion of me, and they asked you, how did it not work? And you said,
it was God's will not to have it happen. I feel it was God's will for her to live and do what she's doing today.
well, you even said that someone said, if it's the Lord's will, she'll live, and if it's not his will, she'll die. And it's just meant to be that I was that sick.
Yeah.
And so you had to get up like every 15 minutes through the night, try to get me to take a little bit of saltine cracker and a little bit of 7-Up and get me through that night. And I remember you shared when we were talking about this recently, after you had the stuff in your system, like you asked the Lord to let you keep this baby. That you didn't want to abort the baby. You were just being pressured into it. And that's so many of our moms that come into the centers that I direct feel that same way. And I was thinking, well, here you are. Do you have any regrets about the abortions not working, or my abortion?
Nope, I don't have any regrets of that the Lord stepped in and took over.
So I know you said last year, I don't even know which friend, but somebody you watched Unplanned with, the movie. And you said, I watched that, and you believed it's a baby in there, and that you even wrote a letter to Senator Amy Klobuchar.
That wasn't last year, that's 2 years ago already.
2 years ago. So you really believe now that it is a baby in the womb.
Oh, I know there is a baby there.
Yeah. And so, but you were so moved by that movie that
It made me sick. It made me sick to my stomach.
And part of why you wanted to support abortion during the years that you have was because your friend had a coat hanger abortion before they were legal, and you didn't want anyone to ever have to go through that again.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of trauma around this issue for you. And so, but you saw the movie and you were so moved by it that you not only kind of changed from where you had been and what you used to post on Facebook, you switched over to pro-life messages and sharing that, and you wrote to our senator, Amy Klobuchar in Minnesota. What did you write to her? Do you remember?
I basically told her that all children are God's gift and that we shouldn't have abortions, that they should be able to be adopted out. That if the mother can't afford to keep them, they should be adopted out. I said, I kept my 2. Mom and Dad helped me with them. I said, not everybody's that lucky. But I thank God for Mom and Dad to want to help raise Scott and Rose.
And I thank them too.